Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
This podcast is proudly brought to you by Solar Lab, designing and delivering premium solar installations for residential and commercial customers across Australia. Red Mill Bakery, Adelaide's finest bakery in Ethelston and Hectorville. Movisoft Trailer Hire, quality trailers, trucks, utes, mowers and more for hire across Australia. Enphase, the world's leading and safest solar inverter manufacturer. Aussie Karts, Adelaide's only electric hire kart facility. Matt Hall DR Kart South Australia, TD Racing, Patrizzi Course, and Radio Italia Uno 87.6 FM, the station powering Negative Camber, the motorsport show.
By being a racing driver means you are racing with other people. And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver. I race designed to win.
It's time for Negative Camber.
Down the inside, Hamilton sees it coming. It's a late lunge by Verstappen, who takes the lead of the race.
If it's motorsport you want, then this is the place to be. All of the latest results, analysis and interviews.
And a great start for car number 11. D'Alberto's got away beautifully at the start of the great race.
Right now on Radio Italia Uno 87.6. And now it's time to introduce your hosts, Jamie Lemure and Leigh Harrison.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Negative Camber. How are we, my friend, Mr. Leigh Harrison over in Miami?
Look, I'm doing well, and you managed to pull that off without your voice breaking, so I'm very impressed with that little intro that you surprised me with there. Well done.
I've been watching Good Morning Vietnam, and so I thought, because of obviously Ferrari's success on track at the moment, and I've got lots of good things happening in terms of the background in life at this stage, it was a euphoric way to introduce the show and revive my vocal cords now as I drink some water. But mate, what's happening in Miami? Fill me in.
Sun's setting. It's been a good day. It's just all moving along at a rapid pace over here. We're 6 weeks now from race day, and it feels like every week is just being ticked off as quick as an eye blink at the moment. So yeah, like I said, a fortnight ago, we've got the Miami Open tennis on as well this week. It started and it continues next week, which has made things logistically a nightmare. But we're doing what we can and making sure that we are getting the job done. So pretty fun time, actually. Good to see some tennis. I went out and watched Nick Kyrgios and Thanasi Kokkinakis in a doubles match a couple of days ago. I saw Nick again in a singles match last night, and then I'll go out again tomorrow, and I think Kyrgios and Kokkinakis are playing in singles tomorrow. So, yeah, it's been good to get some tennis in and break that monotony of Formula One up a little bit.
Yeah, fair enough. What's have you ever been to the tennis previously, or was that your first time?
I mean, I've not been to a proper tournament for the tennis before, so it's been my first time to see a proper tournament in action. And yeah, working side by side with the team from Miami Open. They're in our little office area as well at the stadium there at Hard Rock. So getting to see all the operations that they've put into place has been quite cool.
What's it like seeing a tennis match live? You have me curious now.
It's been quite enjoyable, especially if you pick the right person. Like if you had some people without much personality, probably be a bit average watching people just hit a ball backwards and forwards. But when you've got Kyrgios and Kokkinakis, who in a doubles match especially are bantering off of each other, and the crowd are getting into it, then it makes it all the more fascinating. But the doubles game was out on a back end court number 5, I think it was the other day. So. Yep. Not a big court, but I can tell you what, there was a bunch of people around there. There was not a spare seat on that court, and for a midweek doubles game, I think that's pretty epic. So good to see what they're doing for the sport of tennis. The other courts, like I said, had barely anybody around watching them, and this court was absolutely jam packed. So good on them.
Can you hear a lot of the dialogue on the court? Because I know when I watch the basketball, because we're season ticket holders for the 36ers, when they were at the old Titanium Arena, you couldn't hear a great deal of dialogue on the court. Whereas in the Adelaide Entertainment Centre, because of the way the acoustics are set up there, you can hear all the on-court conversations and the dialogue that the players have, and the coaching staff and that type of thing as well. Is it similar to the tennis?
Well, they're not yelling as much, but when you get up close, you can hear it. We were pretty close watching the doubles match the other day, but in the main arena, you can't really hear much at all. But yeah, I was maybe, 15, 20 feet away from Kyrgios and Kokkinakis, so you could hear the plays that they were trying to make and what they were saying to each other after the points and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool. But there was quite eye-opening just to see how fast their serves are for like face-to-face, like absolute rocket ships, and some of the gameplay is just absolutely insane.
Yeah. It's not until you actually start swinging a tennis racket and a ball, because I do it normally once a week myself just for a bit of fitness and a bit of fun, that you start to get a massive appreciation about what these guys actually do. Like any professional sport, once you actually do it and you're like, oh, wow, okay, they're like next level. So Speaking of next level, I do believe you went to the NBA last night.
Yeah, I went and saw an NBA game. Went up to the Heat versus Knicks game last night, and it was all right. Probably lacked a little bit of atmosphere for what I was hoping for, but I was putting it up against the ice hockey that we went to a couple of weeks ago as well, and the ice hockey had way more atmosphere just from start to finish, whereas the basketball was sort of atmospheric from for the first 15 minutes, and then it dulled down a little bit, and then when the game got close again, right at the end, the atmosphere picked up again. So found ourselves sitting there for a good 60, 70 minutes talking amongst ourselves and not really watching the game because it's got a little bit of a breakaway. But then as the game drew to a close, the atmosphere came in, and the Heat ended up losing, which was unfortunate, but I scored myself a nice jacket in the process, which I'm pretty keen to bring home to the Australian winter and get some use out of.
Oh, very nice. I haven't forgotten of my my merchandise list. It's coming. I'll once it gets closer to the event, I'll let you know. Speaking of the event, so you've talked about logistical challenges. What are those logistics and issues that you're facing at the moment trying to navigate the tennis?
We share the same campus, so our Formula One track goes basically along one side of one of their main arenas and then down the other side of the same arena. So we actually can't access probably what would be about a third of our track at the moment. We can't do any work on it. We can't do any build up on it. We can't touch it because it's full of tennis fans and full of tennis people. So and then a lot of the rooms that we're using for the Formula One inside the stadium are taken up by the tennis people as well at the moment because we're using the same side of the stadium as them. We just sort of got to wait for them to finish their stuff and ship out, and then we can move into that section of the arena again, which is storage and that sort of stuff has made life a little bit difficult. But we've still got 2/3 of the track that we can do some work on, and that's where our focus is at the moment. And because all the focus is just on those certain spots, the build process is speeding along in those areas. We've got most of the beach is built now. The sand for the beach will start coming in the next couple of weeks, and then the pools are already filled up. So the maintenance on the pools will start, and that's just an exciting time.
Beaches and pools, what's going on there?
It's a full Hard Rock beach with a stage and DJ desks and all that sort of stuff, which it's a Hard Rock Beach Club. So there's pools and sand and cabanas and all that sort of stuff, and people will be able to go swimming and lounge on the beach next to the Formula One track.
Wow, so they've actually dropped in, or they're going to drop in swimming pools, and they've actually made a temporary beach just for 4 days.
Yeah, basically. They're building a yacht marina as well. So they're building a scaffolding and then dropping boats in on cradles, yachts in on cradles, and then they'll put some fake sequiny water stuff around the outside of it and make it look like the boats are in a marina inside of the track. But it's all, all man-made and no actual real water on that side of the track.
Wow, that's incredible. But you're going to have to take some photos and start sharing it on our Facebook page. Because that sounds amazing. We're in a bit of an embargo. We have to wait until the event starts before we can share photos. Okay.
Unless we get the express permission that we're allowed to from upper management. But there'll be photos coming thick and fast. Don't you worry about that. So it'll probably be, I'll upload a whole bunch of stuff once the event's over. That'll sort of lift, and then I'll upload a whole bunch of stuff on the plane on the ride home.
Yeah, wow, that'd be awesome. I can't wait to see it. I'm really curious to see now what the finished product looks like, considering that we've had some build-up on it. And speaking of build-up, well, we have an Adelaide 500 again. How good is that?
It's amazing. I mean, what more could you ask for? It's been a good couple of weeks with the election and Malinaskis getting in, and now the phone's blowing up and everyone wanting, is Ladies' Day going to be back on? Is all this going to be happening again? So, yeah, I'm pretty excited. Be back in time for it, and hopefully we can make something happen for Negative Canberra at the racetrack.
That'd be great. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink to Todd and Josh Denton. In all seriousness, that'd be awesome if we could pull something like that off. That'd be great. But man, it's been a long time coming. I mean, I'd be curious to know whether it's going to be a championship final now for next year as well as this year, because it's definitely slated in first week of December 1 to 4. Malinauskas has come out this morning and announced the man responsible for running the event. Which is basically a step back in time as well. It's off the Mike, is it Drew? No, Daniels. I can't remember his name now. Daniels. So Daniels. Which is great, because that was when the event was running at its peak, and now I think they're going to be set to announce the names of the South Australian Motorsport Board as well, because they're going to revive that too, and that group will be responsible for running the event rather than Tourism SA. So I did an interview on the station yesterday afternoon for the Saturday afternoon sports show with Mark and David Heath. And Mark Haston, David Heath, I should say. And, we talked about this very thing. And David had asked the question about the event. And my response was that when Tourism SA ran the event, they ran it like a tourist attraction rather than a motorsport event. So they have to go back to doing that, because that's what made the event so good. But I can't wait.
Yeah, and if anyone on the Motorsport SA board is listening and sees a spot, I'll be back in May. So I'm ready to take it on.
And what about me? You know what? We should be doing the on-track commentary like in between all the events and stuff. We'll do like Negative Canberra on 500 FM TV.
Exactly. It's done. That sounds like a great plan. We should just try and make that happen. I'm sure we've got a few contacts we can get in touch with and start pulling some strings.
Well, hopefully by that stage I'll have my my Motorsport SA accreditations and stuff, and I might be waving flags, and you might be waving from the race control screen going, hello.
Yeah, I'll zoom in on you and take selfies and stuff with you and send it to you on your flag post.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be balaclavaed up, or I'll be wearing the floppy hat and stuff as well. So, speaking of events, we'll talk about the Scuderia Ferrari Club. So I'll put my presidential hat on, and it's membership drive season for the Scuderia Ferrari Club Adelaide. So the official supporters group of the Ferrari Formula One team in Adelaide. Probably a good time to jump on the train and on the bandwagon, considering the boys in red are in red hot form. So the club, as I said, holds a series of events. So we do motorsport events. We run a hire kart championship, which actually is on as we speak. So the Red Mill Bakery hire kart championship round 1 at Jeps Cross Kart Mania is currently running at the moment. We're probably about a third of the way through the race at this point in time. For the Red Mill Bakery Championship. So we did manage to pull off the unachievable, and we did drag biscuits to go alongside your mother. So I'd be very interested to see if he can successfully fill the vacancy that you've left for your mum for a couple of weeks. So we'll have to wait and see.
I don't have hope for him at all, unfortunately. I just want to say I'm pretty impressed with your talents as well, hosting this radio show and driving a go-kart at the same time. That's quite some skill you've got there. Mate,
I'm a man of many talents, and unlike most of us other males, namely yourself, I can actually do 2 things at once. So Shay told me to put that one in there for you. But
yeah. Well, now you think that my wife is your boss, you can hang shit on me too, just like she does.
Oh, she rules everyone's roost, mate. It's not just me. But no, it's so we've got the hire kart championship. She'll be and there'll be social events as well that we are looking to do over the course of this year, including a hot laps day with a GT3 Ferrari later in the year, and possibly getting your own arrive and drive day as well. For those that own cars, you can get out there and have a belt around a track as well. We do a tipping championship, and as well as the Scuderia Adelaide racing team as well, which is the karting team, and which was really cool to present Ileana her race suit last week at the City of Adelaide, which was amazing to see I guess the response that we got from Lisa, her mum, Peter, her father, and Ileana herself. So that made my day, really, to present her the race suit, see the smile on her face, and Lisa, her mother, got emotional about it too, which was pretty cool. So not that you want people to cry of anything of that nature. It's, it was just nice to see that they appreciated it. So
and the pictures look good on Facebook too. So very, very happy.
I scrubbed up all right, didn't I? No, I'm joking. It was Ileana and the suit. We tried to stick with her colour scheme, which is a fluoro yellow, and so Alpine Stars had a nice black fluoro yellow combination as well, which is pretty cool. So kind of reminded me a little bit of JPS Senna, hence why the black and yellow theme, but all good. But that's exciting. So $85 per membership for adults. We also have merchandise range, so we've just released brand new club polos for the racing team and a revised jacket as well, which you can grab off the website too. But $85 for a membership. We do offer kids memberships as well. So to learn a little bit more, jump onto the website, which is www.sfcadelaide.com. And we would love to have you on board, and you can be part of the journey to be officially affiliated with the Ferrari Formula One team.
Very much so. And it's, like you said, the time is now if you want to be involved, because those boys in the red cars are very, very fast at the moment. So it'll be good to get the social atmosphere back and have some more evenings with everyone together and watching the racing when the European season starts again.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of starting, we will come off. We'll go to a short break, and then we'll come back and we'll recommence with our karting segment.
Radio Italia 1.
You're listening to Negative Camber with Jamie and Leigh on Radio Italia Uno 87.6 FM.
Welcome back to Negative Camber, the motorsport show, proudly supporting Scuderia Ferrari Club Adelaide from the studios of Radio Italia Uno 87.6 FM. Big shout out to Ron and the team at Podcast City for also helping us with the recording of the show. And I actually forgot to mention earlier that we are now on YouTube. So we actually launched our YouTube channel last fortnight. So we did the recording of this show, or the previous show, episode 23, into and put it up live as a bit of a test and measure, and actually got a pretty solid response. I think we got something like nearly 60 views. We had 5 subscribers, and also a couple of other some likes and some comments and bits and pieces as well, which is pretty cool. So I guess follow us, subscribe to our. I'm not used to saying that. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch us.
For those that think the sound of our voice is worth going and looking at our faces at the same time.
Exactly. We haven't seen any memes come up yet, and anyone hang garbage on us, so that's okay. That's a good thing, but that will change, I guarantee it. But no,
it's only a matter of time before our good friend Biscuits gets a hold of that.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm waiting for it, and he will probably target you first, thank God. So it's But I will actually post a picture of Biscuits whilst when we're at the race tonight, and go from there. So we can put them all there for everyone to see. I actually saw a picture of him without his beard when he was younger as well. My God, it's scary. He's unrecognisable.
Yeah, he looks like a human and not a dirtbag.
Well, he's a dirt carter now, so it kind of goes hand in hand. He's in his natural habitat.
Fits him, doesn't it?
He's in his natural habitat. So, so yes, you can listen to Negative Camber on our Spotify channel. You can comment and interact with us on our Facebook page. We've got our own YouTube channel up now as well. And actually another little milestone as well, mate. We hit 2,000 downloads last week, which was really cool.
Oof.
Yeah, not bad in 12 months. So 2,000 downloads since we launched it on Spotify and through the Podbean hosting network. And a bit of some more factual information as well. We've got an audience that's Victoria, Queensland. We've got obviously clearly South Australia. We've got listeners in the UK. We've got listeners in Italy. You don't count because you're clearly in America, but we do have we do have some listeners in the US as well, ironically enough. So we're global.
There you go. Look at us go for 2 guys that sat around a kitchen table 12 months ago and had some fun. Yeah,
exactly. No, it's not too different now for you. You're probably at your kitchen table now. So.
I don't have a kitchen. I'm just at a table.
Yeah. Hey, I forgot to ask. You were at Sebring the other week, because when I called you last week, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so a lot of the guys here that we're working with have not really been sort of backstage at a motor race before, or even really seen a motor race. So we went on a bit of a field trip. I drove up with the circuit manager here, and another car of guys drove up as well. Left Miami at 4:00 in the morning, got to Sebring at I think it was 6:30 by the time we got there, and spent the day there for the World Endurance Championship. 8-hour race, and the IMPS 12-hour race was on at the same time. So they had practice and qualifying for that. But yeah, just to take some guys and show them how motor racing works in the paddock, in the race control, in the pit lane, on the grid, all of that sort of stuff. Then we went out and sort of viewed at a few spots around the circuit as well, just so that they could see marshals in action and recovery processes and cars in full flight, really. But yeah, really cool. I've done 1,000,001 laps around Sebring on various racing simulators, so to see it firsthand in real life is pretty cool. And yeah, the event was awesome. So huge thanks to USRM and ASN over here for hooking us up and getting us sorted with some tickets and stuff. If I am very cheeky, I'll be able to just throw, here's my credential from the weekend. So that was quite fun, having a little tabard around my neck. But yeah, that was a cool little experience.
You're an ass for rubbing that in, just saying.
Yeah, I just had to.
I love you though.
I was trying to take some photos of Kamui Kabayashi for biscuits, but I had to settle for Rio Hirianto, who drives the Works Toyota as well. So yeah, getting up close and personal with all those cars. Actually, the circuit manager, who I'm working really closely with, used to work in NASCAR and actually worked for Hendrick Motorsports. So I got to sit down and meet Chad Knaus and talk with him for a little bit, pick his brains over a few things, and yeah, that was pretty cool as well. So yeah, it was like walking with him in the paddock at Sebring was like walking in the paddock at home for me. So it was quite a cool little experience.
And you didn't bother to rip the mobile phone out and have an interview with him, and sort of drop a download here on the show or anything of that nature?
I'll send him a text later and give him the link to the show.
Give you one job to do. One job to do.
I was too busy, being professional, and had my Formula One Miami T-shirt on, so I had to be presentable, be professional, and not bother him too much. But it was still good to have a chat with him and pick his brain. Yeah,
cool. We'll have to learn a little bit more about that at a little bit of a later date. But before we go on to our topic of karting, what were the WEC cars like in the flesh in terms of speed and sound and that sort of thing?
Yeah, really cool. The sound of the Alpine was awesome, so loud and robust, and the Toyotas were a bit more quiet, a bit more hybrid spec. You could really hear the traction control kicking in on the Toyotas, whereas the Alpine and stuff was more about the engine note and just so fast and so good on the brakes. But then you had that mix as well with the LMP2 and GT cars on the track at the same time. So seeing the closing speed on those two sort of different types of cars was really cool as well. Really cool experience. Good to say that I've seen it and done it again. And yeah, I'll if they ever come to Australia, we'll definitely get you there.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to. But pitch and elevation, any good, or is it quite flat?
It's quite flat. Yeah. Super flat. It's obviously an old airfield base there at Sebring, so the course is a couple of long straights with some windy bits in between. Yeah, super flat and just scenic with the hotel and the forestry around it as well.
Speaking of quite flat, pancake and airfield, we will cross over to the results of the City of Adelaide titles held at the Southern Go-Kart Club at Bolivar last weekend, and that was basically set up as a precursor to the up-and-coming Australian Karting Championship round at over the Easter long weekend. They are packed to the rafters in entries. They've actually maxed out pretty much all classes across all categories for the Southern Go-Kart Club event, which for the club in terms of a financial windfall is a massive, massive win, but it's also testament of what the rest of the field and how much the rest of the field hold the track at Bolivar to their heart. So I was having a pretty good conversation with Kip Foster yesterday over the phone, just a bit of a chinwag and a catch-up. And he made it very clear that he was going to make the trek down to Bolivar because he loves the track. He wanted to make sure that he was there to race the second round of the AKC.
Yeah, you'll find that a lot of the big kart guys in Australia love Bolivar. It's that perfect mix of technical and fast, and it's just such a nice track to drive around. I dare say that you would not find, the top 10 karters in Australia not put that in their top 5 tracks in Australia. So true testament to Southern and the Bolivar Go-Kart Club, and hopefully that this sort of helps push that track extension along. And when the track extension's done as well, everyone still thinks that it's an awesome facility. So fingers crossed that only adds to the spectacle that is the Bolivar Go-Kart Club.
Speaking of track extension, have you seen a couple of the proposed designs yet? And if you haven't, would you keep the turn 1, turn 2 section as is, or would you modify it?
Look, it's just got to be done, unfortunately, where it's got to be modified because of the way that the rules are written now for Karting Australia tracks that want to host a national championship. That corner has to be modified, but ideally you would keep it tight, run it back into the middle a little bit more and extend it back, and then have a bit more of a longer straight to the next corner. But yeah, look, they've got to do what they've got to do to keep hosting these types of high level events, and maybe even further into the future push for bigger and better events again. So you can understand why they're doing it. But I love the layout that's been proposed. It's going to make the S's under the Gumtree really, really fast. So that'll be cool. Can't wait to hopefully get back and start cutting some laps around it.
Hopefully get back. Mate, you're going to be here at the end of May. What are you hoping for? You're here.
Well, I'll be back, but how long for, we don't know. So we'll cut some laps for sure. I'm paid up my membership and my license now, so just got to get the go-kart sorted for when I get home, and we can put some rubber down.
Get the go-kart sorted. Mate, Nick was testing your go-kart at the event. I actually saw your Sprint Master in the flesh. I got to say that the workmanship on the frame was excellent. The welding and all that sort of stuff was it's actually a sweet little looking little go-kart.
Shout out to Colin Oak, an awesome job on the welding. Nick sent me a whole bunch of pictures the week up to the race meeting, and really happy with it.
Yeah, no, it looks the trick, but mate, it'll be well sorted by the time you get there. They'll even run the motor in for you at this rate. So yes. Anyway, City of Adelaide titles. I had entrants of about 200 or just a bit over that contested all classes. So there was a lot of the Eastern Staters that made the trek over to get some groundwork in for the event. Results came in as follows. So Cadet 12, Ayrton Del Maso. Yes, we have an Ayrton, and he does wear a centre helmet, and he's a gun, a New South Wales sensation at the moment. Finishing first with Riley Harrison second, and then Corey Carson in third. In actual fact, the Cadet 12 results, there was 0.8 of a second that separated the top 5 drivers, which was amazing when you consider that over 16 laps that it came down to less than a second for the top 5 positions. Cadet 9.
Those kids are always so close. So you look and watch them at the Nationals, and they're one of the classes to watch because there's always a big train of them at the front.
Yeah, 100%. Cadet 9, we had Cruz Kelly in first. Second was Blake Hay, and third was Jay Kostecki. KA2, we had Costa Taparis in first. We had Jack Wells in second, and then Daniel Quimby in third. KA3 Junior, we had Leo Ianella coming out on top with Jacob Chandler second, and then Brody Norris in third place. KA3 Senior, we had Alex Ninovich, Corey Herbert in second, and then third was Nick Sacco. And then we had KA4 Junior, which was first Brody Norris, second Armand Hamilton, and 3 Pip Casabene. In KZ2, we had Josh Fife in first, we had Henry Johnston in second, and Jay Cool in third. Tag 125, the much lauded class under Mr. L. Harrison, was Leigh Nicolau. Second was Max Chudasco, and third was Thomas Gallagher. And then we had restricted medium. We had Ben Moss in first, Scott Borman in second, and Andrew Chapman in third. Restricted light, we had Jordan Kurz, I think it is, in first, Anthony Ormsby in second, and then third was Ryan Dealey. And then in the Premier X30 class, Jaden Pope in first. We had Jackson Suzlin-Harlow in second, and third was Jacob Dowson, rounding out those classes. So all in all, a successful meet for the Southern Go-Kart Club. I'm assuming that a lot of these guys were there was posts coming up all over the place on social media about data collation and that sort of thing. So hopefully they got what they wanted to out of the event in terms of their setup, and that they put it to good use for the up and coming round at the AKC.
Yeah, I'm sure they did, and like we spoke to Nick, and he struggled with the amount of grip that went down. So I'm sure that the guys and girls that competed at the City of Adelaide have come to terms with that and have gone away, and they'll be doing their studying right now. And I think we've got a couple of weeks before that race meeting happens out there on Robinson Road at Bolivar. So there'll be it will be very interesting to see how many of those top three in each of those classes there that you've just read out are in the top three at the Nationals, and how that translates. But the one thing that sticks out to me is Alex Ninovic in KA3 Senior. He's moved up from KA4 Junior, and he was an absolute beast in KA4 Junior. So shows that engine, they've got that figured out. He's just come straight up to seniors, taken the restrictor out of it, and he's off and running. And I think he dominated the first round as well. So he's stepped up and gone straight to the front in seniors as well.
Yeah, well, I'm having a chat with Nick and JK as well in the pits that day at the City of Adelaide. The LeConte tyre has thrown such a cat amongst the pigeons in regards to setup and how karts are responding to that tyre. I've never seen Nick so baffled in terms of setup. They were really scratching their head just to try and get speed out of it, and to try and free the kart up, because there's just that much grip that's being left out on the track. Yeah,
it's crazy, you know. That was the struggle that he was telling me. He couldn't get any grip out of it at all, and then he was getting beat pillar to post because he was down in the junk. So I don't think he even raced on Sunday, but not having any experience on them myself, and haven't been able to be there and help him and do the work with him. So that's sort of put him behind the 8 ball.
All right, mate, there's a seat there with JL55 in the trailer waiting for you to come out, and you can experience some of the finest. But then I've remembered we run Vegas, so it's probably not going to count anyway. But that'll get you up to speed for your 4-stroke class in Whaler anyway. But
yeah.
All right, we are going to be off to a break. We'll come back to do another segment on karting, but this time we go superkarts. But I guess we will start this segment with a little tribute to the passing of Taylor Hawkins from the Foo Fighters.
Radio Italia 1.
You're listening to Negative Camber with Jamie and Leigh on Radio Italia Uno 87.6 FM.
Welcome back to Negative Camber, the motorsport show, proudly supporting Scuderia Ferrari Club Adelaide. Hoping you like the show so far. But we're going to take it up a couple of notches in our karting segment, and we're going to go into superkarts. And recently there was the Australian Superkart Championship held at Tailem Bend. And with us on the line now is one of the current greats, let's say, in Ilya Harpas. How are you, Ilya?
Good morning. I'm very good, thanks, mate. How are you?
Yeah, doing well. We have one of your former opponents on the line there in Miami, just sort of getting a golden tan and, you know, sort of rubbing salt in the wound that he's crisscrossing all over. He's gone to NBA games, he's gone to tennis games, he's gone to ice hockey, he's gone to Sebring. So, Leigh, we've got Ilya on the line.
Hey, Ilya, it's good to finally talk to you again. It's been a little while, but I'm sure we'll have some fun with this conversation.
Absolutely, mate. Good to chat.
So, I suppose for those of us that are somewhat new to superkarts or just following the sport in general, who is Ilya Harpas? Give us a bit of a background.
Mate, well, I kind of... Where do I start, mate? Like, we've been very lucky. When I say we, my brother and I have been able to race superkarts for last 10, 15 years. And before that, we were playing around in sprint karting, which is how we actually know Leigh from back in the day. You know, we're just a little non-motorsport family who kind of caught the bug at a hire kart centre when we were little. Mm-hmm. And our dad, who's amazing, he mistakenly thought it would be cheaper to get a little recreational go-kart and a recreational club license and just go cutting laps around Bolivar whenever we kind of felt like it. And it kind of snowballed from there. We went from practicing to my brother wanting to race, to me wanting to race, yep. And it just spiraled out of control from there.
What a silly decision to make for your dad. He thinking that was not going to bite the bug.
Oh yeah. So to his credit, he's learned a whole lot about racing in karts, and now he's I say this with a bit of bias, but with a great amount of objectivity. He's one of the best preppers in Australia for superkarts, I'd say.
Yeah. What inspired you to make the switch from from sprint karting into superkarts?
Well, mainly it was to kind of get away from that Leigh Harrison bloke. He's just, if you've ever met him, you spend some time with him, you understand. No, I'm joking.
You're making my head big. I'm going to have to go and get some Vaseline or something to lube up my door jam so I can get my house sold out of here in the morning.
Well, you better do that, mate, because I know you've got quite a lot of work to do over there. Look, we were getting quite a lot of help from Dave and Barb Hepworth. So for those who are familiar with superkarting and go-karts back in the day, Barb was a fantastic driver. She was a multiple Australian champion in gearbox sprint karting, and also a fantastic 250cc international superkart driver herself. So with their guidance, they helped us in sprint kart, through the junior categories, and they were actually, first and foremost, they kind of started helping out my brother Yami before I started racing myself. And then I kind of tagged along, but really because they were already quite deep in superkarting and they've raced internationally at this point for quite a while, they were always encouraging us to eventually step into superkart. So it was on our radar from within the first few years, to be honest. And we had some very experienced, knowledgeable people who kind of guided us in the direction of superkarts.
So for those that aren't aware, Barb and Dave were Zipkart, or, the importer for Zipkart. Are you still aligned with them in your superkarts to this day?
Yeah, so look, we still have a very close relationship with Barb and Dave, but I'm no longer racing Zipkart chassis. They haven't actually made a new superkart chassis probably for about 15 years or so now. And Barb and Dave are both kind of wrapping up a little bit in terms of their superkarting careers and activities. And they're a little bit older now and just kind of entering that next phase of life. So we're now racing Anderson chassis, and we're kind of running and managing that ourselves.
Yeah. For those that are not familiar with Barbara Hepworth in terms of outside of the game, if you cast your mind back, I reckon probably 1993 Adelaide Grand Prix, where she had the unfortunate collision with the old Banana Bend wall and actually walked away from it. Limped away, I should say, but it was a massive hit. So if you want to look it up on YouTube, type in Barbara Hepworth Adelaide Grand Prix, and you'll probably find the incident there. And that was a beauty. But that was actually where I got my introduction to superkarts back then when I was a kid. I was actually at that event.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I was. I was one of the kids that saw these massive wings and spoilers and these things just sounding like little rocket ships. That was amazing. And then a friend of mine asked me to go to Richmond Kartmania, and thinking that I was going to see the same go-karts, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's not quite what I saw at the Adelaide 500 at the Adelaide Grand Prix, but it all starts from there at the end of the day. But so, how many titles have you won in the Superkart series now, mate?
Well, the first part of that question is officially, because Motorsport Australia rejigged the, let's say, credentials of certain classes to be officially eligible for national championships and state championships only. Superkarts fell into that second tier category, if you will, along with dozens of other categories. So technically, we don't have Motorsport Australia recognised Australian Championship, which is kind of interesting, which opens up the possibility for a number of different championships. So until this year, we've been racing mainly under Superkarts Australia for the purposes of a unified kind of national footprint. If you take last year as where we only had one of the 2 rounds due to COVID, if you include that, then 4.5 years, I guess. Otherwise, if you rub that out, it's 4. So But this year is going to be different. We're running under a new event this year called the Australian Superkart events. And unfortunately I got quite soundly beaten. So I don't know if it's going to happen this year.
Oh, you're right. When you came into the sport, were you straight into the 250s, or did you kind of work your way up the ranks to get to that?
No, so I started off as a junior supercutter. The first class that I got to race in was actually KT 100 junior clubman supercart. So basically, you bung a aerodynamic nose cone on the front of a sprint chassis. We had a clubman engine with a centrifugal clutch, and off we went. I did that for about a year. Then junior Rotax became a class. So basically a Rotax without the power valve on the back. Mm-hmm. So I raced that for another year and a half. Got to have some good racing with people like Nick Percat, for example. Raced that for a year and a bit before he kept moving up the ranks. And then after about a year and a half, 2 years in that, and moving into the senior category by then the opportunity came in about 2008 to jump into a twin, which is very cool.
Yeah. Can you describe the sensation of driving the twin?
It's very, very similar to the sensation of pulling your pants, because that's exactly what happens when you step into a twin for the first time. It is relentless. You just cannot wrap your head around the rate of acceleration and how that acceleration is still kicking you in the guts even in fifth and sixth gear. It's ludicrous and eye-opening. The other thing that really gets your attention is the performance of the braking. Because we have three disc brakes, two at the front, one at the back, and they are pretty big, and the carts don't weigh that much at all. So you kind of breathe on the brake pedal and the thing just stops on a dime. So I found myself driving again towards the apex because I'd rubbed off too much speed the first few times I drove the car. It's just another level. Like, you have to recalibrate everything that you've learned about racing, basically.
I was just about to ask you that coming from sprint karting, where the karts are not the same size but on a much smaller track, did it take long to adjust to having a kart that was not much bigger and roughly the same size and such a vast space on the track to use to create your lap time?
Yeah, for sure. Look, there are certain tracks where it's not too bad. So Malala, for example, in Adelaide, Sydney Motorsport Park, those tracks being a little bit more old school, a bit tighter, are actually very, very, very well suited to superkarts. Where that becomes a problem is, for me personally, is the Bend and Phillip Island, where you have a much bigger track. And yeah, you can definitely get lost a little bit on the bigger circuits with the small kart. But my solution to that is to look at one of Geordie Ford's lap times and copy what he does.
That's a good benchmark to have.
Yeah, exactly. We had Geordie on the show probably, I was last year at some stage as well, but it was in the middle of COVID. So he hadn't done,
that's it.
He hadn't done much racing, and he comes out in Taylor Bend and then just wallops everyone in terms of pace. So he was either playing ducks and drapes or he was just on a good thing. But where are you seeing, in terms of, I suppose, where do you see your preparation? I mean, your dad, as you said, is, pardon me, your dad, as you said, is key in terms of the prep. What's involved in the preparation of a superkart leading up to an event in comparison to a sprint?
Well, I'd struggle to give you a direct comparison to sprint because I was too young and too ignorant at the time to understand what was involved with the prep. With superkarts, especially with the twins, it is quite prep intensive because there's so much energy and performance going through the machine, through the engine, whenever you run the thing, that things do tend to work loose and fail and break. So the most important thing is to work your way through the kart as much as you can before each race. Pick up as many of the potential problems as you can before you put it on the track, and give yourself enough time to order in the bits, to replace them, to make sure it all works. It's pretty much everything. So, from rebuilding engines and keeping on top of mileage through to making sure that now, the bits on the car aren't cracking. Like, for example, our brake discs were cracking near the vented cross drill sections after the weekend. So keeping an eye on that stuff. Look, it can be as intensive or as non-intensive as you want, but the more time you spend in the shed preparing it, the better time you're going to have at the track, because you'll catch more things and you'll keep running better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you looking at for a budget to run a 250 competitively over the course of the year in broad figures?
Yeah, so if you want to participate in like the national series, and if you want to be fairly competitive, then you're going to have a few extra things like, probably one or two more engine rebuilds throughout the year. So look, if provided you have the car and all the gear to run it, running costs for a year can be anywhere between 15 to about 20K, depending on how hard you want to go. There are other competitors who are probably working in between the 5 to 10K kind of mark, in some of the other categories as well.
And in terms of motor and engine and that sort of thing, I mean, it's what's the motor configuration that you're running? It's obviously a twin cylinder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we basically have two 125 motors that are kind of conjoined at the bottom, and they fire in tandem. So we call that an inline twin. Mm-hmm. The two cylinders at the front and the rear are joined by, oh my gosh, I've just had an absolute blank and I seem like an idiot. Tandem gears. Those are the words. Tandem gears, which then in turn drive the gearbox gear, and then through the gearbox, through the chain to the rear axle. There are plenty of other categories as well. So there's a single cylinder 250 category, which is actually what Geordie was racing a few years ago before he moved to twins. Then we have like the one cylinder 125 gearbox. There's also stock Honda for a more off the shelf kind of less bespoke category, and then we have the non-gearbox Rotax category as well.
Nice. And so I guess, Leigh, how come you haven't mentioned the superkarts yet? What's going on, mate? You've done everything else.
Oh, I've never had the opportunity or been at the right place at the right time to sit my bum in one. So when I get back from Miami, maybe that time will come. I'll converse with Ilya some more, and when they're doing a test day at the Bend, I might suit up and have a go in a gearbox 125 or something.
Mate, we would love to have you on the grid.
Mate, it'd be awesome. Do they what's the scene like over in Victoria compared to South? Do you guys have regular race meets over there, or do you just concentrate purely on the national stuff?
Yeah, so the Victorian Club, I think, has about half a dozen events this year in the calendar mapped out. Some of them are at Phillip Island, some of them are at Broadford, and there's a few races potentially at Winton. So we've got quite a few tracks here that we can race at. Look, it depends on your budget and stuff like that. Because I live in Victoria, in Melbourne, and everything else, including the car, my dad, whole family lives in Adelaide, it's quite difficult to do regular meetings outside of SA. Mm-hmm. So we focus mainly on the nationals, as well as doing any running at Malala at the Bend when there's a test day or a race that we can jump on.
Yep, fair enough. And in regards to like things like physical preparation, I mean, given from the sounds of it, it's quite taxing on the body from a physical standpoint. What do you do in terms to keep yourself physically sharp, and then obviously you're racing as well?
Yeah, man. The last few years, it's been sitting on a couch has been my preparation because of lockdown.
Well, you're in the right seating position, so you've trained your body to get used to that.
That's it. I've got a kind of cheapy motorbike helmet that I bought. I've basically sticking it with a whole bunch of lead wheel weights to make it very, very, very heavy. So I lie down on the ground and I kind of lift my head up with the helmet on and basically smash my neck muscles as much as I can. That's the most important part of the preparation, to have strong neck and shoulder muscles, because we don't have anywhere to brace. We have no support in the kart when it comes to cornering and G-forces. We have to hold our head up by ourselves. And if your head is flopping around all over the place, you simply can't drive the car. So that's priority number one. And number two is just build up a fairly decent level of just aerobic fitness.
Yep. So like cycling, running, rowing, something that sort of thing.
Yeah, I tend to focus on running and rowing. I like running, and rowing is great for the whole body, but especially like the back, upper back, neck and shoulders. Mm-hmm. So I tend to focus on those. Yeah,
awesome. We will come back. We're going to go off to a break very shortly, and then we'll come back with you, Ilya, and we'll continue the discussion a lot more, and then we'll also review your the results at the opening round of the Australian Superkart Championship at Tailem Bend.
Radio Italia 1.
You're listening to Negative Camber with Jamie and Leigh on Radio Italia Uno 87.6 FM.
Welcome back to Negative Camber, the motorsport show, proudly supporting the Scuderia Ferrari Club Adelaide from the studios of Radio Italia Uno. We've got Superkart champion, not Supercar, but Superkart champion Ilya Harpas on the line. Ilya, going back to driving style for for driving the 250. I'm curious to know how you guys can do your shift. So you've obviously got a gear shift alongside you, but in terms of the process involved and the driving technique behind that, can you describe that for our listeners, please?
Yeah, for sure. So our gearbox system works very similarly to like a motorbike gearbox. So there's a linear progression, and it's a sequential type shift. So you have to go from first to second to third, etc. And you'll find neutral sits between first and second gear. So when we start the kart up, I'm sitting in neutral, get a little push start, and I'll have the hand clutch fully depressed. I'll stick it into first gear, and I'll drop the clutch and kick it over and put some throttle, and off we go. So shifting gears from then on, it's a dog cut box. So once you're out on track, you don't really need to use the gear, the clutch dog. Mm-hmm. You simply give a slight lift on the throttle, and you can punch it into the next gear. So because my gear shifting lever is on the left, I have to push away from me to shift up and pull towards me to shift down, which is actually different from most sequential boxes. But apart from that, you kind of actually have to lean a little bit, put a little bit of pressure on the gear stick itself, and when it's time to shift the next gear, you kind of just end up lifting touch on the throttle, and that detensing of the gearbox plus the pressure that you have on the gear stick lets it just slot real nice and neat into the next one. It's a very kind of neat solution. But the only thing I will say is the engines are producing so much power. You've got these tiny, tiny little gears and gearboxes. They sometimes have a tendency to get a bit broken and smashed up.
With your gear changes the way that they are, do you find it difficult, normal sequential gearbox, you push forward to go down the gears and pull backwards when you go up the gears? Do you find it hard under brakes to pull backwards to go down the gears?
No, I'm kind of used to it by now. You have to have the ergonomics set up though correctly for you. Otherwise, it can be. So I basically hook with my left hand. I hook my thumb to the steering wheel, and I just use my middle finger and my finger second to last. I don't know what to call it. Just to kind of
ring finger.
There you go, ring finger.
For us married folk.
Yeah, I'm not married yet, so I'm thinking about it. Exactly. So I just use those to kind of flick down towards me. So as long as the gear stick hasn't moved, it's actually not too bad.
Do you find that you don't get a chance to miss shift, or you don't say over rev the engine or anything of that nature? Is it easy to do, or quite difficult to get to that level?
Look, sometimes you can miss shift. And to your point, Leigh, I think when you're kind of accelerating hard and you're going through the corners and you're being pushed away from the car back into your seat, sometimes it is easy to not do a full shift motion to grab the next gear. And when you don't quite get that right is when you can do a little bit of damage and do a misshift, like you asked, Jamie. So the answer is sometimes, yes, you can misshift, especially on the upshifts. For me, sometimes as well, if your engine isn't responsive to the blip on the downshifts, sometimes you can kind of clunk and bang gears together on the downshifts too. That all needs to be nice and tight and in sync, if you will.
Yep. Fair enough. In regards to safety and the like as well, I mean, you guys would be doing speeds well over 200k an hour, without a doubt. Is there always concerns in regards to safety? What sort of apparel are you having to wear and that type of thing as well?
Yeah, so look, safety, we've had a pretty good run. These things are inherently pretty safe because they're so small, right? And they weigh so little compared to cars. It means that we have a very low inertia. So if we're spinning off, we slow down very, very quickly before we connect with anything like walls, gravel traps, stuff like that. So the first question is, because we're racing on big tracks purpose-built to cars, it's actually pretty safe inherently. In terms of the safety gear, we have to run a certain specification of helmet. It needs to be in line with current standards. It doesn't need to be carbon and like same level as, say, F3, F2 or F1 even to that fact. Yep. We're strongly encouraged to wear racing leathers. The reason for that is because we don't have a crash structure or a roll cage. If for whatever reason the car does tip over, we need to be able to extract ourselves from the car. So similar to how you wouldn't strap a motorbike rider to his motorbike or her motorbike, you wouldn't do that to Superkart. So if for whatever reason we do flip over, we're protected by the leather race suit for sliding along asphalt.
So it's almost like you're basically like in a proper motorcycle racing outfit for the most part, with all the all the relevant protective gear that they have underneath, and you just strap yourself into a superkart instead of a motorbike. Yeah,
pretty much. Geordie's race suit is a motorbike race suit with all the neck protection and kind of like guards taken out, or you can even get stuff that's a little bit more custom built for karting. There's a crowd called Walden with a Leather in Adelaide who builds them as well.
What about in terms of tyres and that type of thing? I mean, can you get, is it one, I mean, for your go-kart, I'm assuming it'd be fresh tyres for a race meet every time you race, or are they a little bit more durable in terms of their performance and longevity?
Yeah, look, a set of tyres. Firstly, there's a few different brands that you're allowed to choose from. Cool. We run Dunlop DAU tyres, which are, I think this is specific for Australia. You can't, unfortunately, run them overseas. Those tyres are fantastic. Like you can run pretty competitively for a whole weekend on one set. I think if you're chasing podiums and wins and stuff, you need a few more sets on hand, because there is a bit of a difference between a fresh set and a slightly used set. You probably drop about 3 or 4 tenths over the course of 2 or 3 hard runs on the tyres, but then they'll hold that kind of level for quite a while. So yeah, look for those on the budget. They're very good. They're still competitive-ish for the whole race, but otherwise we tend to throw a new set at the kart for most of the heats. So we'll have about 4 sets over the course of the weekend that we rotate through. Nice.
It's they remind me a lot of then for, I wouldn't say, whereas say with a sprint kart, you're pretty much throwing a set of tyres away pretty much every event. But given the speeds that you guys are doing and I guess the impact that would have on in terms of horsepower and power to weight ratio on those tyres, to get that sort of performance out of a set like that is actually very, very good.
Yeah, and look, some of the other categories, like 125 gearbox categories, they have more control over how many tyres you can use for a weekend. They do things like they'll mark the tyres, so there's, controlled spend, I guess, given it's not like the open category that the twins are.
With sprint karting, there's obviously that choice of magnesium versus alloy, and each have got their pros and cons. Do you have the same sort of setup for the Superkart, or do you just use a one type of wheel and that's the end of that?
Yeah, we tend to just use magnesium rims, and in fact, Anderson Superkarts uses Edwards wheels rims that are built in Adelaide and designed and manufactured here, which is awesome. So we can just pop down and see Ross Edwards and say, "Hey, mate, we need some more rims." So pretty easy, standard magnesium rims. Sorry, alloy rims. So
yep. Cool. All right, well, what we'll do is we'll talk about the event that was held at the Bend recently, the opening round of the Australian Superkart Championship. And we will run through the results and then we'll get your feedback in terms of how that event went for yourself. So this is under the revamped Australian Superkart Championship, if you want to call it that. And I suppose to add to that, what were the differences, and you probably touched on it before, but to refresh, what were the differences between last year's championship and this year? So what are the changes that have occurred behind the scenes? Because at the end of this meet, there was a lot of optimism amongst all of the drivers, and you had probably the largest field across all classes that you've had for quite a while.
Yeah. So I think the biggest difference would be philosophical for a start. I don't want me to get very deep and heavy, but from a non-event point of view, in terms of bigger picture, I think Australian Superkart events have done a fantastic job of profiling the event in a much stronger fashion, media coverage, focus on volume as well, and bringing in other clubs to help beef up the numbers with non-gearbox, for example. So from that point of view, it's a little bit more commercially focused, which was, pretty cool to see. And I think it's very important for us to build a bit more of a profile with the sport. So from that sense, that was probably the biggest difference. In terms of the actual event itself, very similar in setup. There was Friday practice, quali and practice on Saturday, and racing from Saturday through Sunday. So the event itself and the running of it was fairly similar. And we had the same fantastic people kind of liaising between the category being us and the race organisers. So thank you to Pam Pegararo and to Barbara Hepworth, who were absolutely fantastic. And they kind of helped plug the operational gaps between the 2 years as this new organisation kind of gets up to speed with all the finer details. So in terms of how the event ran, very little difference, I guess, from a competitor point of view. It all ran very smoothly. The biggest difference is going back to Phillip Island later this year, which is awesome.
Geez, that'd be magic. Going into turn one in a 250 would be unreal.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It gets a bit sketchy when it's wet, though.
Are you flat?
In the dry, yes. In the wet, no. I don't have the testicular fortitude.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I can understand that. So we'll go through the classes and we'll run through the results. So obviously the 250cc international class is the one that you run, and Gary Pogararo ended up taking home the overall win, followed by yourself. Congratulations, despite some of the challenges that you had. And then Geordie Ford was actually third.
Yeah, so that must have been the last race, I think.
Yeah.
That was an interesting race. I think by this point, I just have to give a shout out to Geordie and the Williams racing team. They were the benchmark in terms of pace. Geordie's just fantastic around the bend, especially. He's got a fantastic synergy and understanding of that track. So my aim was to just get closer to him compared to last year, which we managed to do, which is great. Look, Geordie and Gary were having a bit of a battle in front of me. and I was just hanging on most of that race. So I got to see Geordie and Gary dicing. They had some fantastic racing. They're kind of going too wide through the fast, sweeping corners and chopping and changing. And Geordie would get past him, then Gary would shove it back down the inside the next corner. Not bad for someone who's just turned 60, I believe, and he's been racing for almost 50 years. So that was great. But then I think Geordie had one of his spark plug leads was working its way loose throughout the race. So he was kind of like going hard, and then it would kind of slow down, then it would kind of come good and slow down. So he kind of dropped off a little bit as the race went on. So the last few laps I was trying to chase down Gary, who was a second or two ahead of me. Fortunately, my pace was good. I started to catch up to him. Unfortunately, I kind of came across a few back markers and awkward parts of the track, so I lost about 3 seconds in the last 2 laps. Just finished 2/10 behind Gary crossing the line, so almost got him at the end, but not quite there.
Oh, good stuff, mate. It's a good way to open up your account anyway. So the 250cc national class, first was David Salter, and then we went to 125cc non-gearbox light and heavy, which is the Rotax motors, yeah?
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So in the light class, we had Sanuja Pereira, who ended up getting first, followed by Anthony Ormsby in second. And then third, we had Doug Savage. And then in the heavy class, we had Pat Ross, followed by Cole McIntyre, and then Brandon Stillwell taking out third place. And then in the 125cc open class, we had Brad Stepney-Marsh, followed by Brad Tremaine, and then Harry Gregorio. And then in the stock Honda class, we had James Gorman, followed by Jeff Duckworth, and then Tom Rowe in third. So, mate, the next event, I think round 2 of the Australian Superkart Championship is going to be at Phillip Island, which will be probably a few months' time, middle of the year, I think it is.
Yeah, he's in August, I believe.
Yep, birthday month. Love
Early August.
Yep, no, there you go. See, birthday month. Everything good happens in August, mate. But, mate, it's been fantastic to have you on the show. We really enjoyed your company. And, by all means, we do endeavour our best to try and spread the word on superkarts. So, we'll hopefully we'll have you on at a little bit of a later date. Maybe we'll have you and Geordie on at the same time. Yeah,
mate, that'd be awesome. Thank you very, very much for having me. It's been a pleasure to chat to you both. And good luck over there in Miami, Leigh, too, by the way. You are doing amazing things.
Thanks, buddy. I'm having a good time here and hitting all the goals. So I look forward to catching up to you properly when I'm back and sharing a lot more information on what's been happening over here with you.
Hitting all the goals and hitting all the door frames with your head, my friend.
Awesome.
And because I got good friends like Ilya that pump my tyres up all day, every day.
No worries, mate. Enjoy. We'll go off to a break and then we'll come back and we will talk Formula One.
Radio Italia 1.
You're listening to Negative Camber with Jamie and Leigh on Radio Italia Uno 87.6 FM.
Welcome back to Negative Camber, the motorsport show, proudly supporting Scuderia Ferrari Club Adelaide. That was a cracking chat with Ilya, great guy, and it makes me want to don a leather suit and go out there and race superkarts now. Yeah,
you'd have some fun doing that, that's for sure, driving around those tracks in a 250 international kart. Yeah, you're not wrong. Ilya's a cracking dude, and known him for many, many years, since probably 20 years now that I've known Ilya, so always good friends, and whenever we catch up, it's like there's been no time between drinks. There's always a good chat.
Yeah, I think the next time they race at Taylor Mend, I might make my way down there and actually see the karts in action, and be good to sort of poke our face around the place. So maybe we'll do a trek up there. You can give me the VIP, considering you're VIP everywhere else.
I can show you around for sure.
So now we cross over into Formula One, but before we do a review of the opening round of the series, let's introduce the Mr. Leigh. So the topic that we are going to cover in the Mr. Leigh is, what exactly is ground effect?
Yes. So, I mean, we touched on this a little bit when we were talking about the 2022 car when it was released and how it was going to make racing better, which, you know, before, spoiler alert, we get into the Bahrain results, definitely helped. Up until sort of recently this year, a lot of the focus has been on downforce and creating downforce and how much downforce you can get to get your car around the corners. Obviously, more downforce means you can corner faster and more sleek. And that was usually, up until this year, created by pushing the car onto the surface of the track. Ground effects takes a bit of an opposite approach from that, and it sucks the car to the track. We saw this a lot in earlier times. I'm stumping myself here, but I think in the 70s or 80s, or with the Brabham fan car. And
1978 was the Lotus with Mario Andretti. That was the start, and then the Brabham car as well.
There you go. So 70s and 80s, I'm about the right spot. And they used to put skirts on the side of the car so they could trap the air underneath the car and not lose that air. But basically, essentially what it is that all of the winglets on the front of the car and on the floor are there to direct the air underneath the car rather than on top of the car. And then channels underneath the bodywork on the floor funnel into the diffuser, which then opens up wider. And that then creates a low pressure system coming from underneath the car as the air speeds up, which then sucks the car to the ground. This also then means that the air coming out of the back of the car escapes faster. So that means that it shoots more aggressively into the air, which doesn't leave as much of a dirty wake in behind the car, immediately behind the car. It takes longer for that dirty air to find its way back down to the ground level, let's call it, which is why the cars can follow faster, because they're not sucking in each other's dirty air, and the cars can be more aerodynamically stable and more aerodynamically efficient. And I guess as well that goes into the big topic of the porpoising. That's having ground effect cars is why we're seeing the porpoising now, because the cars are being sucked down to the ground, and without skirts on the cars, it means that then the body is, or the underfloor is bottoming out against the track. It then releases the suspension, which then brings the car back up off the ground, but then the aero sucks the car back onto the ground again, and then we repeat the process. And that's why at peak velocity, we're seeing the cars bouncing up and down and up and down, up and down, because the cars are getting sucked so hard into the ground that they're actually bottoming the floor out. But I guess that in a nutshell is what ground effects is and how it works. All the winglets force the air into the bottom of the car rather than on top of and around the top of the car. And it means that the cars can follow closer and we can have some better battles on track.
Beautifully put. And speaking of battles on track, we had the opening round of the season held in Bahrain last weekend for the 2022 Formula One season, and these are some of the highlights.
Brand new season, brand new dawn for Formula One. It's the Bahrain Grand Prix. And it's lights out and away we go. Brilliant start then for Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton already trying to get past Carlos Sainz, but it's Leclerc on the inside ahead of Verstappen. Carlos Sainz stays in third, Perez on the inside now with Lewis Hamilton. There's a little bit of a kerfuffle going on through turn 2, but Leclerc makes it into the lead, and Hamilton has got half a car length, now a whole car length ahead of Sergio Perez, and now he's been challenged as Perez by Kevin Magnussen. Leclerc into turn 4 from Verstappen, Sainz, Hamilton on the inside now of Kevin Magnussen, and then comes Perez and Russell.
Yes, Perez got out of shape coming out of turn 2, had to get out of the throttle. That cost him 2 places in the end as he tried to get back up alongside Lewis Hamilton.
Meanwhile, the FIA stewards have decided Esteban Ocon should be given a 5-second penalty for causing a collision. That, I think, goes along with what the FIA was saying from those guidelines. Sergio Perez is trying to get a bit closer to Kevin Magnussen himself, and we'll see with these new regulations whether it is much easier to follow. As a lock up there from Kevin Magnussen going into turn one gives half a sniff to Sergio Perez to try and get past. He couldn't do it out of turn three, but he might on the run now down to turn four. Magnussen moves to the inside to try and cut him off. Perez is going to have to go the long way round. Magnussen's got that one covered, and as Perez can get him on the exit of turn four, and Perez, the wily old campaigner, might be a front tyre ahead going down the hill. He's now a whole car ahead going down the hill. Magnussen gave him the chance. Perez said thank you very much.
As Sergio Perez there getting...
That's Hamilton and Perez.
Yeah.
Look, Hamilton's got DRS here. He's going to have a go into turn four. That is an awful lot easier than it might have been this time last year. A Red Bull and a Mercedes going wheel to wheel into turn four. Perez stays within the white lines. Max Verstappen couldn't manage it 12 months ago. Perez up to fourth place. Lap 17, and the fastest lap of this race goes to Max Verstappen, who's going now for the lead of the race, and in a shower of sparks makes his way into turn one ahead of Charles Leclerc. Tried to get past Leclerc as he came out of the pits, had to wait a lap, but now can Leclerc with DRS get back at Verstappen? We're heading towards turn four. This has been a bit of a problem for these two in the past. No problem this time for Charles Leclerc. Can he stay on track limits just as he retakes the lead from Max Verstappen?
And Leclerc immediately tries to move around to break the slipstream, and you can do that gently once or twice, but you can't do it at the last moment. And has he covered
He's doing it again, he's going for it again, Max Verstappen, and he's got a quarter of a car length in front. Now they come out of turn two, and he's got a couple of car lengths in front, Max Verstappen. That was so far back, but once again, Leclerc's got the DRS. This time he's got the inside line, forces Max a little bit wide, goes into turn four. Leclerc, for the second lap running, has retaken the lead and has come out of turn four ahead. This is absolutely epic.
Leclerc's using his battery pack in an attack or defensive mode, rather.
Here he goes,
Look
here he
at
goes,
that.
here he goes. He's doing it.
It's miles different. Oh, that's a big old lock-up, Max.
Well, this time he locks up, but did you hear the cheers of the crowd, who are absolutely loving this under the lights in Bahrain? This time around, Charles Leclerc, with the aid of that lock-up, has got the advantage going into turn four, and he should be far enough ahead to keep that advantage as well.
Max, is the wheel heavy in both directions, so both left hand and right hand?
Everywhere. It's not even smooth.
Well, he's going to slow down because we're going to get a safety car here, because Pierre Gasly's Alpha Tauri has overheated and has caught fire. The marshal straight on there with the extinguisher, but that is a very, very hot Alpha. Real disappointment for him, and we could see, Martin.
Yeah, it's a complete power failure. Look, from his dashboard's gone completely, so it's not an engine blow. And this is Max's favourite trick, isn't it?
Yep.
Trying to hustle the guy who's about it, and he's left himself very tight on that last corner, actually, has Max.
And
so no wonder the Ferrari disappeared.
It's not helped, and look, Sainz is right on the tail of Max Verstappen as they head down the straight. Leclerc is away and off into the distance. Sainz is alongside Max Verstappen. Leclerc leads, Verstappen on the inside, Sainz on the outside. Verstappen stays ahead going into turn one. Sergio Perez almost collected by Lewis Hamilton, who was arriving at a rate of knots, but now it's Leclerc towards turn four from Verstappen. Then comes Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez, Hamilton, Russell, and then Kevin Magnussen.
Hey, what's going on with the battery?
Battery fine.
No, it's not. I have no real... What the f*** is this?
Carlos Sainz pulls out to the inside and overtakes Max Verstappen, and it's a Ferrari 1-2 here in Bahrain as Carlos Sainz moves up into second place. 46 races since they last won. Ferrari are 1-2 here.
We can see the issue, Max. It's not battery related.
What do you want me to do?
There's not a lot we can do.
And will Verstappen now be passed by his teammate Sergio Perez? Yes, he has been. And he's been passed by Hamilton, and he's been passed by Russell.
Okay, try to make it into the pit lane, please,
Max
Max.
Verstappen is out of the race.
I'm losing power.
Hamilton's got DRS once again, and can he get close enough to Sergio Perez? Not on this occasion. You can see the bumps and the porpoising there that is just unsettling the car into that first braking zone, and Perez has been spun round. Sergio Perez has lost it on turn two. Hamilton, looking for damage limitation, has seen the damage to the Red Bull, and he's going to pick up another podium. This is incredible. And it was just under traction.
I love the engine.
Charles Leclerc, who's won twice in Formula One before from pole, is going to win from pole again and start the season off with celebrations for Ferrari. Charles Leclerc wins the Bahrain Grand Prix, and it is a 1-2 finish for the Scuderia. Carlos Sainz comes home in second. Lewis Hamilton adds to his podium tally. He comes home in third.
Let's go! Let's go, come on! That's exactly how we should start a season. Come on! 1-2, baby! 1-2, yeah!
We'll be in Jeddah in 7 days' time for more racing. Ferrari go into it with a perfect start to the new season. Win, second place, fastest lap, and all the smiles belong to the Scuderia tonight.
And fair to say here at Negative Camber, we know our stuff. You could almost call us the oracles or the prophets, because we called a red victory last week. Wrong driver, but we were close enough. So the overall top 10 for that result, for that race, was Charles Leclerc first, Carlos Sainz in second, Lewis Hamilton a surprise third, George Russell fourth, Kevin Magnussen a sensational fifth, Valtteri Bottas in sixth, Esteban Ocon in 7th, Yuki Tsunoda 8th, Fernando Alonso in 9th, and Guan Yu Zhou in 10th position. I hope I pronounced his name correctly, but I think we got the gist. First Ferrari 1-2 since Singapore 2019, and what a damn good feeling that is.
Yeah, you'd be excited. Your household would be excited. Your family would be excited, and the club's certainly excited. But what a great race. Absolutely fantastic battle between Charles and Max on those two occasions coming out of the pits. The tyres seeming like they're fading faster than what anyone has thought. So maybe the races are going to be multiple pit stop races this year, which is going to bring back another level of strategy and excitement. And all things pointing upward and in good direction for Formula One.
100%. Oh, look, it's sensational to get a Ferrari 1-2. They've certainly come out of the box with a car that's clearly up to scratch. They've done their homework. They've had, it could have gone either way with new regulations. I mean, they've been working on this car for nearly 2 years, and it could have gone either way. They could have gone, the direction of Mercedes or Aston Martin, for example, where they've got some massive struggles with porpoising. And so, where they're losing anywhere between half a second to 0.7 of a second a lap, which means you're down the back. So, clearly they've done some work with that power unit. It's certainly arguably the class of the field now, because that's replicated in Haas as well as Alfa Romeo's performances too, I would imagine. But also, they've got quality drivers as well. And Charles, I think, got the kick in the pants that he deserved from Carlos last year, and he's clearly taken his game up a notch this year as well. So,
and it's been good to see them in Saudi Arabia this week, and they've both been giving each other hammer and tongs. And like you said, they're both going to be fighting for it. I still think that Carlos is going to come out on top in the championship. I'm still sticking true to those guns, which I predicted 2 weeks ago. But like you said, they've had plenty of time to work on the car, work on the engine power, work out the integration of those two things together. And with Guan Yu Zhou and Bottas getting into the top 10 for Alpha and K-Mag up there, and Schumacher only just missing out on a point as well for Haas, you can see. And again, this weekend at Jeddah, all those Ferrari-powered cars are up the pointy end as well. So, love to be Bottas right now, sticking it to the Mercedes cars in an Alpha. He'd be having a little chuckle and a smile under his helmet at the moment, and it's good to see.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll go off to a break, and then we'll come back and we'll do a full review of that opening race of the season, and we'll also discuss the winners and losers.
Radio Italia 1.
You're listening to Negative Camber with Jamie and Leigh on Radio Italia Uno 87.6 FM.
Welcome back to Negative Camber, the motorsport show, proudly supporting the Scuderia Ferrari Club Adelaide. Near the end of the show, but we need to cover in depth the opening round of the Formula One World Championship. Red Bull double retirement, Leigh. I didn't expect it, to be honest with you, but it looks like they had the same issue across both cars.
Well, not even just both cars, all 4 cars. We had Gasly go up in smoke as well, but fuel pump issue for those engines and being starved for fuel saw both the boys retire. And like you said as well, I was not expecting that so close to the end. I was hoping that Max and Charles were going to get to fight it out all the way to the end. And then when Max dropped out, I thought Perez was going to be there to get on the podium, but unfortunately not.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the main issue was that they had the vacuum that was the vacuum mechanism that fed into the fuel pumps. That failed effectively, so they weren't able to draw fuel, and it happened within a lap or two of one another. There was a rumor going around that as well that they actually short fueled both cars and they got their calculations wrong as well. So it's a bit weird considering they had a fuel pump failure within half a lap or a lap of both those cars. It was either sheer coincidence or there might be some truth to the rumor about the short fuel.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of trouble as well with some of the fuel pumps at testing. The Alpha had a couple of instances where the car didn't want to go anymore, and due to the fuel pump. So hopefully that it was that issue and it was a coincidental and not just an under-fueling. But very, very suspicious.
The other thing I noticed too, and they made light of it of the coverage overnight as well, is how much lower the Red Bull gets to sit on the ground in comparison to pretty much any other car. So they're the only car at the moment that's able to create their trademark spark where the under tray or the floor is actually hitting the ground. So they're still trying to, work on that front rake type setup as best as they can. You can see there's a slight rear elevation. You noticed it in particular at Jeddah, but it's clearly probably the most comfortable car in terms of how flat it sits, and the Ferrari's probably not that far behind.
Yeah, I think, if you're looking at the floor of the Red Bull, there's something in that spring that's on the front end of the floor that stops and stiffens the front end of the floor up a little bit. So I think that's why they don't struggle so much with the porpoising when the floor is hitting the ground. But yeah, it's good to see the sparks and all the different innovation that's coming into play to try and get rid of that porpoising. They are the class of the field, Red Bull and Ferrari, and it's going to be interesting this weekend to see how it plays out in Jeddah. You've got spoiler alerts, but you've got Leclerc and Sainz second and third, and then they're the meat in the Red Bull sandwich with Perez on pole and Max on fourth.
Yeah, Sergio nailed a lap and a half, that's for sure. He developed a set of kahunas.
Absolutely.
and threw all caution to the wind. Mercedes certainly punching above their weight, I think, results-wise for that meet. They were honest with themselves and they were very fortunate to probably get third. They probably expected maybe fifth and sixth at best.
Yeah, I think they're probably the fourth or fifth best car at the moment. It depends sort of where you find which one of those midfield cars, the Haas, the Alpine, or the Alpha, is going to pull their socks up and be super competitive with both cars. But with Russell and Hamilton, you've got two handy steerers there. But they're struggling again. Glad to see George qualify Hamilton by a strong margin in Jeddah, and he's going to outrace him for most of the season as well, by the looks of things. I think Hamilton's just struggling to get on top of the car, and they've got some work to do for sure. The fight all the way to the end with Red Bull last year, I think, has definitely taken its toll on them.
Oh, yeah,
maybe they weren't focusing as much of their development on this year's car as they were saying.
I think, look, it's on evidence right at the moment. I'd probably tend to agree. I think what's kept Red Bull with an ace up their sleeve is they've got Adrian Newey, and so he's also been one of the very few designers that are in that pit lane that worked in a ground effect era. So all you have to do is read his book in How to Build a Racing Car, and it tells you all there in all detail as to what and how he worked in that era too. So, look, they've certainly got some tricks up their sleeve. I'd expect Mercedes to improve as the year goes on. I think by the time the cars arrive in Australia, they will probably bring some aerodynamic aids with them or have a better understanding as to how things go. But, look, anything's possible with this with Jeddah tonight as well. I mean, it's the sort of track that can cause a lot of chaos very quickly. Even if last year's race will be anything to go by, but probably a good thing that Red Bull and Ferrari get their act into gear now and build a bit of a buffer in terms of Mercedes. I mean, Mercedes at the moment will be probably more in damage control more than anything else, I would suggest. McLaren, struggle streak.
Yeah, again, they're Mercedes power, so it's obviously engine supply that's helping them struggle as much as they are, but they've been having brake cooling issues, and that's obviously culminated with some lost testing time in the Bahrain test, and Ricciardo wasn't there to do any of it as well. So with COVID, so that certainly didn't help him at all. I don't expect them to be down the back for long. They're a lot closer this week in Jeddah. Once they get on top of these brake issues, I think you'll find that they creep their way up to be. I honestly thought they were going to be the best Mercedes-powered car this weekend in Jeddah. But yeah, they struggled a lot in Bahrain with those brake issues, and we'll see them get on top of that. They're not going to be down the back for long.
No, not at all. Not at all. What were your thoughts on the cars overall in terms of F1 regulations, etc.? You reckon they've nailed it?
I'm not nailed it is the right terms. I think they could have still done more. There's still a lot of aero wake around the cars that's affecting them, and still very, very short braking distances. I think if they took some of that away and we had longer braking distances and even less aero again, we would find the racing even better. But yeah, look, it's a genuine step in the right direction. The racing was definitely more interesting, especially when you look back at that duel that Leclerc and Verstappen had, like I said, 3 laps where they were dicing hard with each other, and it was even on further on down the field with lots of overtaking. So I think, like I said, positive step in the right direction, and let's see what happens with some of the other tracks that are, a little bit harder to follow on. Say when you come to Jeddah, it's a bit more flowy with a few long straights, and then especially when we get back to Melbourne in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Melbourne will be the test, because Melbourne's notoriously renowned for being next to no passing, and more often than not, the races are quite dull. So, I mean, I guarantee you'll get a spectacular race tonight. And there probably will be crashes and stoppages, without a doubt. But Melbourne will be the test, especially now under the new track changes that they've made, where they've pretty much straightened out the river section as well. The lake section. That'll be the key for me in terms of whether the new regulations have actually added to racing or not. So we shall watch this space. Winners and losers, it's back. The much loved segment, you could say, closely followed by Jamie's jokes. But anyway, so we shall start with my first winner, Charles Leclerc. So quoted Thursday as saying Ferrari must get back to the top, and he delivered top shelf performance. So pole, fastest lap, and his driving against Max was top shelf as well. So I think it was more of a reminder for all of us that he's actually is world champion material when he's on his game. All right. So, did you know that he was actually the first Monegasque, and is the first Monegasque, to lead the world championship, and it was actually his first win since Monza in 2019.
There you go.
There you go. Loser, Red Bull. So they were arguably the favourites after testing, but were outgunned by Ferrari, and then they looked to comfortably get second and maybe fourth. And then in the last 2 laps of the race, it all unravelled, with both cars retiring with fuel issues. Did you know that it was actually the first time since Austria in 2020 that both cars had actually retired?
There you go.
There you go. That should be your segment. There you go.
There you go.
Losers, McLaren. So experienced COVID and front axle issues in testing. But I guess they didn't expect such a poor performance for the opening race of the season for both cars. So off the pace considerably, finishing 14th and 15th respectively. So, no dice for them. Winner, K-Mag, or Kevin Magnussen. Now, that was a comeback. That's not a bad...
That was a comeback. To get the call up a week before the race meeting and do 1 day of testing, what a drive.
100%. 100%. So it took him a week to prepare for the shock return to F1 with his former team Haas, but you wouldn't know it. drove superbly all weekend, made good use of the car. So clearly Haas have done their homework as well. The VF22 is certain to look like a regular point scorer, and that's backed up by his performance in Jeddah with a top 10 qualifying result. And it was his first Q3 appearance since Brazil in 2019. So it's their fifth top 5 finish and 10 points, which, did you know, was actually the most points that they've actually accumulated in the last 2 years in comparison.
More than, yeah. And it was good to see Gunther smiling again and laughing and carrying on.
The social media team at Haas have been building 2 years of memes, and they brought them all out to play over the course of 24 hours. It was fantastic. Exactly. So, loser Pierre Gasly struggled to unlock the potential of the AT03 through testing and also into the weekend, but pulled out a ripping lap and got him into Q3, and then he was literally on fire in the race where the kart caught fire, and basically it was left to Yuki Tsunoda to bring home the points. So AlphaTauri didn't walk away empty-handed, but probably should have walked away with more. Winner, Alfa Romeo. Yes. Only because I love Alphas. But a tough pre-season. Looked grim. However, armed with the classy Ferrari power unit, they hit back. And Valtteri continued his form in Q3 with a classy 6th place in qualifying out-qualifying George Russell, ironically. But Valtteri suffered some wheel spin on the start, being on the dirty side of the track, and pretty much dropped about 3 or 4 spots and had to fight back, so he made life hard for himself as well. And Zhao Guanyu, I believe that's his name anyway, made Q2 on debut. Oh, we'll get it right. I do apologise to all of our Chinese friends. It's close, yeah. He made Q2 on debut, which is a great result, and then actually scored a top 10 result too with a cracking drive. So congratulations to him for his race 1 debut, point score, and opening the account book and doing good things for Alpha. Did you know?
One race scored more than their whole 2021 campaign as well.
Exactly. You knew. See, you knew.
I knew.
Now, Aston Martin, porpoising cost them 0.5 to 0.7 second per lap they forecast, which is horrendous. So they didn't make Q1, which is always going to be a challenge, and the race was only marginally better, but a bad result considering the budget that they've got moving forward and how cashed up they are. But they also didn't have Sebastian Vettel as well, who plays a key role in terms of their engineering and setup in that team. Winner, Ferrari. Yeah, save the best till last. So it looked positive during pre-season. They came out blazing, and they were going to be at the sharp end of the grid. Strong race pace for both cars. Carlos probably not quite getting to grips with his car as much as Leclerc. And Leclerc's victory ended a, did you know, 45-race winless streak, the second longest in the team's history, and confirmed the red cars are going to be contenders for both titles this year. They are back.
It certainly seems that way. They're definitely coming out in force this year, and we predicted it 2 weeks ago, and we'll stay firm this show as well that Ferrari are on the hunt. I still think Red Bull are going to trump them in the championship, but I think science is going to come up trumps for the drivers.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of coming back, we have Jamie's jokes.
Now it's time for Jamie's joke of the week. Let's get ready to laugh our socks off.
Mr. Leigh, what happens when you put your hand in a blender?
I don't know.
You get a handshake.
Oh, yeah. Here is one sock being laughed off.
Mr. Leigh,
mm-hmm.
2 guys are playing chess. One says to the other, how about we make things a bit more interesting? So they stop playing chess.
Deary me.
And you know what? 3 times the charm.
We're having 3 jokes this time.
Yes, there's 3. So my wife complains that I don't buy her flowers.
That's fair enough.
To be honest, I didn't know she sold flowers.
Oh dear, poor me.
You know what? It's more fun watching your facial expressions and the cringiness. That goes to show that, next time, tell me the truth of the fact that you do know Ilya and not throw me under the bus at the beginning of the interview.
That's all right. That's all right. It's all good. It's all good in the hood.
Mate, well, you know what? Good to see you
love
again.
Your dad jokes.
Look, it's going to become trademark. I didn't get cream puffs or anything thrown at me in the pit lane the other week at the City of Adelaide, so it's okay. That's all good. But, mate, lovely to see you again. Good to see that you're alive and well when you've certainly got the, the tourist kitchen going on in the background there with all of your coffees and Pop-Tarts and bits and pieces going. So, look at that. Look at that.
Gatorades, microwave, chocolates,
Clearly a tourist fridge. But, mate, it's going to be an interesting race tonight in Jeddah, and we will be back in a fortnight's time for another episode of Negative Canberra as we count down your return to South Australia. And I guess we'll talk about the up-and-coming Australian Grand Prix as well. So make sure you tune in to our Spotify channel when the show will be uploaded, as well as our YouTube channel. Please subscribe and also follow us on Facebook if you have any questions or feedback as well too. Shoot them our way, and we'll make sure that we answer them and maybe even put them on the show next week. So we hope you enjoyed the show. Good night, everyone.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.